Welcome to the Pitch Your Pick podcast, the podcast where we dive deep into the sports books, find our favorite plays, and pitch them each other to find the best plays every day. I'm Joe. This is Jer. How you doing today, my man?
I'm doing well. I had Friday off. It actually turned into a busy day off. A busier day than I expected, but it was a good day.
You know, those happen.
We still got the full weekend ahead, so looking forward to it.
Yeah, looking forward. I got the Syracuse game. I can watch us lose on senior night. Always love that that time. So we actually had our first positive night of the week, I actually think, other than maybe Monday. Monday was a good one. But we had yesterday, Bojan Bogdanovic let us down a little bit. That was an L, but Timberwolves covered their spread versus the Thunder very handedly, we should say. So that was an easy check. Gobert and the Jazz had an absolute stinker. That's why Bojan didn't cover. It was probably one of the worst performances you've seen from Utah all season. Cameron Payne's over on the assists. Whatever you took it at, that was over. Campaign had his career high in assists, and I know that the books were not predicting that. And I also put out a tweet saying I picked some Mikal Bridges overs just in case I wasn't able to get the line on Campaign, and that over also hit. So it was beautiful. And the Fridays with Fran pick was an absolute banger. Darius Garland pretty easily cleared that one for his 20.5 over. And if you got the 19.5, that was also just as easy cleared. So it was a pretty good day on the podcast, man. 3-2 overall, thanks to Fridays with Fran. If it wasn't her, it would have been another even night. So I guess we got to give some big thanks to that for giving us positive. So we can check out the wonderful NHL slate. And you said that this one actually looks pretty juicy. So you could take us through this one.
Yeah, it's not a bad slate. There's 10 games tonight. There's a few games that I like here. A couple that we put into a fun parlay that we might talk about later. The only game that I'm personally going to talk about is the Seattle and Washington game, but there's a few games that I already see here that I want to target for some props tomorrow.
Nice. I thought you were going to talk about some specific matchups, but all right. All right, well,
that's about it.
All right, well, moving on. NBA, it's all right. I think there's one game in particular that both of us really are interested in, props-wise, in this Spurs and Hornets game, and there's not even the full props out for this. There's quite a few other props that I'm really liking for the Spurs and Hornets, but I'm only going to be covering, I think, one later, maybe? Actually, no, I'm not covering one later, so all my props that I have for this aren't going to be there, but I think JR has one for it. Mavericks Kings, pretty underwhelming. 76ers and Heat should be a pretty decent game. We get to watch two really top Eastern Conference teams go again at it. If you want to see some embarrassment, you can watch this Lakers and Warriors game and just watch LeBron get annoyed with his team at home. Always a fun time. And we can move it over to college basketball, where it's just honestly one of the best nights you could possibly have in college basketball. There's so many good games to talk about. We have, I think this is Coach K's last game at Cameron Indoor Stadium, which is absolutely insane to watch. If you have the opportunity, highly recommend watching. I mean, tickets are reselling. You look at this, $3,700 is the cheapest ticket. It says tickets as low as $3,700. In what world is that low? It's crazy. But we have other bangers like Texas Tech and Oklahoma State. Kansas and Texas are going off at it. Baylor and Iowa State. USC and UCLA. Arkansas and Tennessee, which we'll talk about a bit later. Alabama, LSU, like there's just so many good games. Like honestly, if you are a college basketball fan, just get out there and start watching the games. There's so many good ones to have some fun with. And I don't want to I could actually take the whole 20 minutes of the podcast just talking about what games to watch in college basketball. So we're going to move on and let Jer pitch his first pick so I don't get off on a tangent.
Yeah, so I'll start in the NHL because I know we got a lot of NBA to talk about.
We do.
But I'm going to start with a bet that I've already made on the podcast before. And I'm going to be looking at the Seattle Kraken team total under 2.5. So tonight they have a tough defensive matchup. They're playing the Washington Capitals. On the year, the Capitals rank 8th in goals allowed, only allowing 2.8 goals per game. But the Capitals also rank 3rd in shots allowed. So they don't give up that many scoring chances. And as we've talked about before on the podcast, the Kraken offense is one of the worst in the NHL. They rank 26th in goals, only scoring 2.6 goals per game. The Kraken also rank 31st in shots on goal per game. This offense really isn't built to generate a ton of scoring chances, and like the Capitals don't give up a bunch. The Kraken have struggled on the East Coast recently, where they're 1-5 in their last 6 versus teams in the Eastern Conference. Over the last 10 games on the road, they're 7-3 to the under on their team total. They're coming off a win, but I don't think that means they'll get hot because they're 0-5 in their last 5 coming off of a win. The Kraken also don't play good teams tough. They're 1-5 in their last 6 games versus teams with a winning record. Against a Washington team who doesn't give up a ton of scoring chances, and Seattle doesn't get many to begin with. I like the under here.
Yeah, that's generally a pretty safe bet when one team can't score and one team is really good at stopping you from scoring. Yeah, an under seems like, I guess, the reasonable choice, to say the least.
Yup.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just based off of how you described it, it's yeah.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. Like, yeah, we'll just move on. I think that's pretty clear.
It is what it is.
Okay, so I'll start off, and at this point, I think we have to make it a regular segment that every time the Lakers play, we got to make a pick, and we have to have some Lakers slander. At this point, it just has to be a fixture of the Pitch Your Pick podcast to just dog on the Lakers for at least a few minutes. So we're gonna go to the Lakers, and we're gonna check it out. We're going to be not actually looking on anybody on the Lakers. We're just going to make fun of their terrible defense because we're picking Klay Thompson's over on his points. Klay's been on a few games of rest and is coming back in here into the lineup. And last game that he played against the Lakers, he had 33 points, and his line is currently set at 17.5. And in Klay Thompson world, 17.5 is a pretty solid one. I mean, the Lakers just let Reggie Jackson go for 36 points on their domes. So I don't really know if defense is really what they're looking for. The last segment where we had the Lakers slander, Jay was talking about how this Lakers team is just mentally checked. They're just not looking for it. If we're looking at the guys that are going to be guarding Klay Thompson, I mean, maybe Stanley Johnson, if they decide to throw him on there, but he's more of like an interior defender. So aside from that, we're sending Talen Horton-Tucker, Austin Reeves, maybe Carmelo Anthony matchup, which, let's be honest, they're not guarding Klay. Like, there's really not a single person on this lineup that can guard Klay or Steph or anybody really on this Warriors lineup at all. And this Lakers team just generally doesn't, or has a problem trying on every single possession. And against a, offense like the Warriors, where it's constant ball movements, player screens, and just off-ball movement in general, I just don't really see LA clamping up. And then just a quick final point on this. Gary Payton II, who has been starting in the minutes where Klay hasn't, or the games where Klay hasn't been in, isn't going to be playing tonight, so there's more minutes to go around. I assume that these will go to Jordan Poole and Klay Thompson to get right back in the swing of things. And generally, it's pretty safe to say that when Klay gets around that 20-25 minute total, getting 20 points is a pretty simple one for him. So in general, yeah, I'm just going to go on that Klay over at 17.5 because the Lakers really can't guard a parked car.
Yeah, no, I don't mind that. You never want to bet an under against the Lakers.
Especially when, you have Draymond Green who's going to be out too.
He's not, Klay's not necessarily great to the or over on the point total. He's only 4 in his last 10 games, but most of the games that he doesn't cover, he's sitting within a bucket. So asking him to get one more bucket against a horrible Lakers team isn't much.
Yeah, I mean, and especially, I think the only worry is that the Warriors, blow them out, but the Warriors have actually been on a pretty bad stretch of games, so I would expect them to be trying their damnedest to get out there and get back into the swing of things, because they have lost 3 consecutive. The only W they've actually had in their last 6 games was against, if we go last 7, is Lakers and Portland. So I'm going to assume that they're really going to try to get out there and fix some of the woes, although it's a little bit hard without, Draymond Green out there. It's not the full team, but still, there's some games that they should still be winning. So I'm going with Klay on this over. I just think at every single Lakers game, you got to pick one of the guards to go off against the Lakers. It's just kind of a ritual at this point.
Yeah. And I'm actually have a player prop in this game as well.
Oh, I like it. More Lakers slander is always nice.
No, this is going to be Lakers gas. Actually.
Gas.
But this one,
I don't like this.
This one's straight out of your book. We're going with the superstar. We're taking the points, rebounds, and assists.
Okay.
And the over, it's LeBron James over 44.5 points,
Okay.
rebounds, and assists. And so I was gonna say we've slandered the Lakers enough over the past few days.
So we completely disagree.
And we need to give them a little premium gas here.
Okay.
And we'll really give the only reason that the team's won a few games this season some premium gas. At home this season, LeBron's averaging 29.8 points per game, 7.9 rebounds per game, and 6.5 assists per game. He's covered this line in both games versus the Warriors this season. And quite honestly, I don't really give a crap about the Warriors defense. LeBron is the only threat on this Lakers team to score, and the dude is a problem every night. It doesn't matter for who. Nobody's really had anybody to stop him when he wants to score. It really just depends on if he wants to score. And he enters this game 23 assists off of 10,000, I believe. And once he surpasses that 10,000 assist total, he'll be the only player all time with 10,000 points, rebounds, and assists. And I still think he's the best passer in basketball. So I think we're going to see him put on a passing clinic over the next few nights. But the problem with that is his teammates have to make the shots, which doesn't happen too often. So I expect him to get pissed as usual and probably drop his usual 30. So I like the over there.
Yeah, I think another thing that you didn't really mention is that AD is out, so LeBron has really been helping on the boards lately a bit more than maybe normal. Center. Yeah, so LeBron has been the one horsing it and kind of running the fast break. But yeah, I think the number one problem is going to be for this is that the Lakers have to hit the shots. LeBron can get his points. LeBron can get his boards. But I don't have faith in Russell Westbrook making even a shot in the paint off of a LeBron pass. That's just the state that we're in. But I love that you said you're going to give him some gas, but still found a way to talk some trash about it. So, it still works out. But I do think that betting an under on LeBron's over points, rebound, assists is a pretty dumb idea. So it's either over or nothing.
Yeah, the dude's a problem. It's as simple as that.
Simple as that. I'll be taking it away actually from college basketball for a second here and taking it to March Madness time, I guess, if we can call it that right now. We'll be taking it to the Arkansas-Tennessee game, which I said we'll be talking about a little bit later. Well, the later has come, and here it is. So we have Arkansas and Tennessee, and this is a pretty good game, I will say. And I'm actually surprised at this 83.4% of people picking Tennessee to win, and that Tennessee's actually favored by 6.5. When I looked at it, it was actually -7. And it's probably mostly due to the fact that Tennessee is a insanely good home team, and that's exactly why I don't feel comfortable betting that -7 spread. And I'm actually going to be looking at the under for the team total here at 139.5. And there's one main reason for this. These are two of the best defensive teams in the country, and 139.5, given their last matchup, seems a little bit out of pocket, considering the last time these two teams played, it was 58-48, which is only 106 combined points, essentially saying that they think the offense is going to be so much better between these two teams that it's going to make up for 34 extra points. And I just don't really see that happening, given that Arkansas does play at a fast pace, but Tennessee plays at one of the slower paces in college basketball. And then when they play at home, they play an even slower pace, around 146 in the country. They just don't really like to move it, like to get in their set offenses. And both of these teams don't shoot above 45% from the field and keep opponents to less than 40% from the field and less than 30% from three. So both of these teams sometimes struggle to score and also stop everybody else from scoring. So it's going to be pretty tough. Arkansas only allows 67.8 points per game to opponents, and Tennessee only allows 63 points per game, which is still under this 39.5 mark if we just go on averages. Last game that they played, Tennessee and Arkansas, Tennessee only shot 27% from three, which was absolutely horrendous and was part of the reason it was so low. And if you look at the spreads for this, or the trends for this, the under is 4-1 in the last 5 home games for Tennessee, and in 6-1 in the last 7 home games for Tennessee because they play at that slower pace. And those home teams have all been with a winning record. This 139.5 line, again, is essentially just saying that they're going to score 34 more total points. And I just don't see that given how tight the SEC is, how much people are trying to get that last final win to push themselves, farther up into March Madness or even that SEC tournament, given how important it can be. So I see, this being a win for Tennessee, but a relatively low scoring game and getting under that 139.5.
I like that. I like under. I always like unders more and more as it comes closer to playoff time.
Yeah, especially when you have two top defenses that have been inconsistent on offense. It's just, I don't know. I just think it's wild that they scored 106 points last time when it wasn't this like clutch time where you have to win your games, and they just kept it at what it was at before. It just seems a little wild to me, but I'll take it on the under. Thank you very much.
Yep, I like that.
All right. You said you had a surprise third pick for us tonight, right?
I do have one more. I'm tired of going 1-1. I'm tired of having an even record of the podcast. So we're either going 2-1 tonight or 1-2.
Solid strategy.
So this one's actually still going to be in the NBA as well. We're going to talk about the Sacramento Kings on the road against the Dallas Mavericks.
Okay.
And this is going to be another game of between two teams trending in opposite directions, I guess you would say. The Mavericks have been on fire recently, covering in 8 of their last 10 games. They're 8-1-1 against the spread. In that over that last 10. On the other side, the Kings have only covered 5 of their last 10 games. But most of those covers have been against weaker competition like the Thunder. And failing to cover against teams like the Nets, the Bulls, Denver, and like a hot New Orleans team recently. So far this season, these teams have played 3 times, and Dallas has gone 2-1 against the spread. In the game Dallas didn't cover, Luka actually did not play. In the other 2 matchups, Dallas covered the first one by 1.5 points, and in the second one that they covered by 15.5 points. I know the Kings team likes to run, but I don't think the Kings are good enough to control the pace against this Dallas team. The Mavericks allow the second least points per game in the NBA. And I think this is just partially due to because they're a good defensive team, but it's also they limit the defensive possessions that they have in a game. They rank 3rd in turnovers, so they don't let teams get out in transition and run, and they don't give up a lot of defensive possessions. Sacramento is not really built to score in the half court. They don't really have that many great playmakers outside of De'Aaron Fox. Luka's been torching people at home this season, averaging 29.8 points per game. Truthfully, this Dallas team is a much better team than when these two teams last played back in December, and Dallas won that game by 15. Coming down the playoff stretch, I don't think Sacramento really has what it takes to hang with a team like Dallas. So I'm gonna lay the 7.5 points here with Dallas.
I think you severely discredited my boy Sabonis. You said aside from Fox, that's the only good playmaker out there. Sabonis, he's making the plays at that center position. He's just not playing any defense. But it is what it is. And I like your point that Dallas is just a better defensive team, because the strategy since getting Sabonis for the Kings has just been get out and run and just score. And we'll worry about them not having as many points as us later in the fourth quarter. And it hasn't really been working for them. And if
that doesn't work.
Yeah, and with Dallas being so tight with the ball, because you do have a lot of really good playmakers on Dallas, that getting out and run kind of style just isn't going to work. Because, guys like Jalen Brunson and Luka Doncic and even Spencer Dinwiddie to an extent aren't really going to be turning the ball over. They're very, tight and crisp at what they do. So I do like it. And it seems like, I don't know if this has anything to do with it, it seems like getting rid of Porzingis has just got a new life into Luka. He just seems ready to go, not having Porzingis out there bringing him down. So I do like them to just cook out there on the Kings. I think it should be pretty fun.
Yeah, I don't really like the Kings. I don't really like anything about the Kings. That I don't like that philosophy of just getting out and running.
You
Um,
know, it
I
can be
think you
fun to
got
play. That's about
it can be
it.
it can it'll work, it'll win, so it'll always, that philosophy will always win some regular season games because people don't want to get out and try that hard. But when it comes down to the end of the year, teams like Dallas and games that you, if you're shooting the ball more than the other team at the end of the day, usually you're gonna have more points. So that's why I like Dallas.
Yeah, that's fair. And I guess because we talked about this Spurs and Hornets game being so interesting in terms of player props, I will shout out one that I'm eyeing out here, though I don't actually have access to the lines yet for this specific player. But just wanted to shout it out. It won't be an official podcast play, but just something to keep your eyes on. And it's going to be a player on the Spurs who has been absolutely torching people recently, and that is going to be Lonnie Walker, who I normally would completely ignore, but he's actually been kind of crazy lately. I'm not exactly sure what Lonnie's points total obviously going to be like, but if you just look at his recent performances in that game log, this guy has been going crazy. He has had 20 or more points in his 5 of his last 7 games, and the 2 games that he didn't get 20, he had 17 in each of them. He has 6 straight games where he's hit over 2 threes, and he's been getting consistent minutes around 20 to 30 minutes. You have the 4th place team in the Spurs going against the 2nd place team in the Hornets, and with how great Lonnie's been shooting it from 3, it's really juicy to be looking at, especially that 3-point total as well as his just overall points total, given the fact that these guys don't play any defense at the 3-point line. Charlotte allows the 2nd most makes to teams from the 3-point line and the most 3-point attempts, while also allowing a 10th best 3-point shooting percentage on all those attempts, and they allow the 3rd most points per game inside the 3-point arc as well. It's just not really looking at too good. I think this game is going to be an absolute shootout. People are just sprinting around the court and going crazy. And given the fact that the team total's at, I think, 21.5 right now, they kind of expect that as well. I think there's going to be a lot of shots going up. And the way that Lonnie Walker has been hooping lately, I think that when he's hot, he's hot. And I think this is going to be a pretty interesting play to look at. I just can't make it an official play just because, there's no line for me to actually bet to pitch to you guys.
Yeah, I'm tempted to bet just every over on every prop in this game and just see what happens.
It just looks fun. I might watch it just because I think it's going to be a wild game.
Yeah, well, the total's set at some ridiculous, like 241 or something like that.
Yeah, it's gonna be a shootout. It's gonna be wild.
It's gonna be a fast-paced all-star type game.
And then right after that, we're gonna have the 76ers play Miami, where it's going to be one of these slower-paced games, and all about actually outsmarting other people, which I think is I just think it's gonna be funny, the parody that we got out here. So we'll just go make our daily pick screen real quick for you guys and recap them before we head out. All right, so we forgot that we mentioned the parlay earlier that we may be building, or we did build, and here it is. We're gonna split it really quick. We figured it'd just be fun to show our first parlay. So we have a new, almost guaranteed bet every single time we can. Bet out here with Miles Bridges assists at over 3.5 at a -165. This is essentially taking an equal spot with Sadiq Bey over 2.5 assists for the podcast plays basically every day. It's been money for us. I think Jared said he had this as one of the quickest to cash last time he bet it, which is wild out there. And then we have
he cashed that thing with 4 minutes to play left, or in the first quarter, so that was a wild cash.
Unreal. And then we have 2 NHL games, which are the Blues and the Predators on the money line. I obviously can't explain to you guys too much of why we have that, but Jared obviously can.
Yeah, no, I actually don't have a lot of stats for these. The Blues have been crushing it recently, and it's more of these 2 are more of gut plays. The Blues and the Islanders actually play an afternoon game, so I know those can be a little weird, but I like the Blues offense way more than the Islanders offense, for that matter. So one team has to score goals, so I like the Blues to score here, and I think they're favored by -140, so that's a little heavy on the juice to bet on its own.
And then for the next pick is Arizona State at -5.5. Obviously, college basketball is a little bit of my specialty, but we found this one. Actually, he found it, and I gave it the A-OK after looking into some of the stats on there. it's essentially a tale of two tapes. Stanford has just had a really bad year and really just isn't looking good as of late with just really not great defense. And then Arizona State has been looking pretty damn good recently after losing to the Syracuse boys in the beginning of the season. I didn't forget about that. And are actually playing a lot better. We just think this 5.5 spread should be a pretty easy one for Arizona State. As long as they get their offense kicking, it should be a pretty handed win for them. And then we have Stephen Curry over 7.5 assists is a line that he's pretty consistently in. I think Jared has the specific stats on that. But obviously Curry getting assists isn't that crazy of a bet.
Yeah, so Curry's actually gone over this total in 6 of his last 10 games. He's covered in 3 of his last 4. In those 3 covers, he had 9, 10, and 14 assists. Against the Lakers this year, he's covered in both games with 10 and 8 assists. And as you heard earlier, Joe likes the over on Klay Thompson points. And Curry's going to be the one passing him the ball. So we like that play. We like that combo there. And the last part of this parlay that I didn't mention when we were talking about the NHL was the Predators playing the San Jose Sharks. And the reason I like the Predators because they're one of the best road teams in the NHL. They're the best road team in the NHL to their over on the team total. So they're scoring goals at a really, really good rate on the road, and they draw a matchup against a Sharks team who allows a decent amount of goals. The Sharks have just been average this year, and I just like this spot for the Predators to get a win here, favored by -160.
Yeah, and putting these 5 picks together in a little 5-leg parlay, which granted, Jer, I know, is not a very big fan of it. I think parlays are kind of fun, building them out. But he's not the biggest fan of parlays, so we try to keep it as conservative as we can with a few, gut plays here and there.
I like this one, though.
Yeah, I think this is nice because it also kind of embraces us where we have, NBA picks, your NHL one sneaking in there, and some college basketball from us. I think this is a nice example of the Pitch Your Pick podcast and what we dominantly bet on as well. But I think the end odds for this 5-leg parlay was somewhere around plus 1,570. So it is a bit bold. But I think a lot of these aren't necessarily crazy plays that are going to be, super unreal to happen. They're just a bunch of plays that definitely can easily happen. It's just all a matter of if they do. So I like this one. I think it's going to be a good one to tally up because we have at least 5 games to watch now, which is nice. So we can head over and check out today's pick to finish off this segment for today's podcast. Klay Thompson over 17.5 points. We just talked about it. The Kraken team total under 2.5. LeBron over 44.5 points, rebounds, and assists. Arkansas versus Tennessee at under 139.5 points. Lonnie Walker as our little bonus play out there. And the Mavericks to cover their 7.5 spread versus the Kings. All around, a pretty decent slate. I'm not going to jinx anything. You know what? Every time that I say we're going to do good, we do terrible. So I think it's a pretty bad slate for the Pitch Your Pick podcast. I think this is going to be a blistering 0-6 out of us tonight. So I'm expecting us to have a pretty bad one tomorrow when we come in and check out on these. So if you guys did enjoy and you're on YouTube, hit that like button down below. Comment what you guys think of the podcast and hit that subscribe button. If you guys are new to the channel, if you're on any of those wonderful podcast platforms, leave us a 5-star review and let us know how much you love our beautiful voices. And maybe check us out on YouTube so you can see Jared's lovely face and the new hat that he tries to wear every single day. It'll be a fun one.
Love it.
Make sure you go out there, make some bets, and make some money.
See ya!